to discuss?
Second.
Oh, well, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna get in queue on this one.
Go
So,
ahead.
yeah, there's a reason I was trying to move us along. So, as everybody knows, Hendersonville had raised their maximum tax, or raised their tax rate to 9.25 to 9.75. I believe those are the correct numbers, correct, Mr. Long? So, the way this works by statute is that the county can collect sales tax up to a rate, the maximum rate that it applies. We have a maximum rate of 9.25, so we can split sales tax with any city up to 9.25. So if a city is above 9.25, then we do not get to split that amount which is captured from 9.25 to whatever that higher number is. In this case, 9.75. So there is a 0.5% difference between what the city of Hendersonville is collecting and what we are able to split with them. So recognizing this went to referendum. Recognizing this, I had a conversation with Mr. Long and just kind of was asking, what do we think we're missing out on here? So I think we roughly applied that 0.5 times some expected.
The whole county is about, I think the whole county is around 11 million.
Yeah, it was around 11 million that we're missing out. Recurring revenue here
Is that per year?
per year.
If you did it countywide.
If we did it countywide. So I'll get to you. I just want to continue on this one. So it's important to note here that we're missing out. We're missing out on about 11, but we would be missing out on about $11 million if we apply to countywide. A large portion of that would come to come from Hendersonville. I think about 5 million. It could be a little bit less. We'll have to work on the exact numbers on this, but it's a considerable sum. So we're seeing this. I went to the law director's office and I said, well, I don't like the idea of a new tax here, but in most of the change in these taxes is going to be in the cities themselves anyway, and Hendersonville's already brought it up. So at least for those cities and those folks in Hendersonville, they're really not going to be paying any more taxes. It's just that we're going to be able to collect some of what Hendersonville is collecting. Now, other cities, it might be a little bit of a different case. Or those folks, if you're buying something out on like Long Hollow, which is out in the county, yes, your Coke might be a little bit more expensive, but the majority of our commercial activity is going on in the cities themselves, which means that we're not actually imposing any more taxes on folks. We're just collecting from what is already being, we're just splitting from what is already being collected by the cities. Now, in order to do this, and I think this is absolutely righteous, and I'm not even saying we want to do it, but in order to do it, we would need to place this to referendum. We would need to place this to referendum, and in order to do that this year, we would have to move on it pretty quickly. So I'm not making a recommendation one way or the other. I'm simply stating that we've done a little bit of fact finding here. We are missing out on some revenue now that the city of Hendersonville has voted 2-1 to take care of this, and to raise this. If we want to do it, we need to put it to referendum, and if we want to put it to referendum, we need to act on this probably in the next 60 days. So those are just kind of the facts. I'll lay them out, and I'll go ahead and move around. Mr. Long, I think you were next, then Mr. Schmidt.
Do we have a motion to discuss?
Do we have a motion? Oh,
I have my hand up.
do we have a motion to discuss?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Motion
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we know what? I think we did have a motion to discuss.
You did.
You did. All right. I'm out of order.
Now you tell.
Now,
You got it.
go ahead, Mr. Mansfield.
So, just, restate for my understanding purposes. Hendersonville raised by referendum, the citizens voted to tax themselves more, going from 9.25% sales tax to 9.75% sales tax. I know that the way it was sold in Hendersonville was like, well, you either can raise taxes yourself for this, or we're going to raise your property taxes for what we want to do. So, I mean, it's kind of like it was boogeyman scare tactic, in my opinion, the way it was sold. to the citizens. Just to clarify that, I know the White House already is at 9.75% as well. So if you're saying Hendersonville's at 9.75%, White House is at 9.75%, whatever they've been collecting, should the commission want to put this forward for the citizens to vote on it, should the citizens vote on it to do it, to raise sales taxes in the county, unincorporated parts, you'd be capturing White House's half of theirs as well. But it's important, it doesn't go to the, what you capture from the cities doesn't go to the county, it goes to the schools. So it doesn't, none of it comes to county general or to county employees. 100% of that capture goes to the school system when you raise that sales tax. Now, the sales tax that you raise in the unincorporated areas, half of that still goes to schools, if I'm understanding. But then that other half of that in the unincorporated would come to the county general fund. So just
That's correct.
You're getting that
You
small
are
or very
correct.
small. So I don't even know what that is. That piece of the pie is. And I know that Portland has voted like 3 times against the sales tax referendum for their city. I don't know if Gallatin ever has done a sales tax referendum to raise it or not. And so I don't, but not White House and Hendersonville, the only ones that I know of our major cities. So I'm just curious, like, when you say $11 million that the county's missing out on, is your calculation on what Hendersonville? Because when you say $11 million, obviously half of Hendersonville, so they said they're gonna get $9 million a year. So $4.5 million is gonna go to the schools, not the county general.
Yeah.
And so, but then, I don't know what White House is doing. You're gonna take whatever White House is collecting, we're gonna be cutting into their budget and taking that from them as well. It would happen automatically, from what their revenues are that they're used to getting, and I don't know what that is. And then, so, I mean, I don't know if that's $4.5 million, I don't know if that's $2 million for them a year.
It's about 4.5 for Hendersonville.
4.5, yeah, how
11
much?
million is countywide, but remember,
But you're including Hendersonville.
yes, that 4.5.
Yeah, the 11 is, okay, so, and Mr. Juwan, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong here. The 11 million is all in,
Including the 4.5 million.
including the 4.5 million, so that's one big bucket. Now, each of those cities, I think that was like, it was like 4.5,
I've
like
got
1.5, like.
So you're
I got
including
the
White
sheet
House?
for Thursday.
Yeah, so we can look it all
So you're
out, but
including White House in that?
Yes, I can
Capturing
show you the
Correct.
sheet what we.
Are those the only 2 cities, if I'm not mistaken?
It would be all, because the referendum would be countywide. The 11 million would include all cities. Because you gotta remember, then another thing you can remember, dollars are fungible. So if you use this 11 million toward education and you put all the second half of the sales tax over the general purpose school fund, you could decrease property tax
Correct.
the same amount in the general.
Correct.
purpose.
So we could decrease the property tax.
Correct,
Yeah, that's just-
correct. Now, there's some
Well,
other things you have to do here.
My question there, well,
You have to-
property tax is more or less fixed, sales tax is not, so, I mean.
It's true. So here's the thought, and Mr. Long and I spoke about
So
this.
you're saying if you, well, hold on a second.
Go ahead.
You're saying if you wanted, the commission wanted to do this, I'm not saying I'm for this, and the citizens wanted to do this, when you raise it to that 9.75%, that's just countywide, period, over the cities at that point. It's not just an unincorporated parts.
Correct.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So it raises it for Gallatin, for everybody.
Correct.
Okay. Whether they do it or not.
Correct.
Versus the citizens, the opposite way.
Yes, well, right now, Hendersonville in specific, it's the opposite way.
Correct.
But, so, what's important to note here, and I know I've got you and I've got you, but,
Chairman House and Q2.
the 11 million would be all in. A large portion of that would go to schools, but to Mr. Long's point, there's several things you can do, right? So, at the end of the day, the dollars are fungible, which means that there's, to some degree, it's a bucket. And as long as we maintain maintenance of effort on the schools, for example, to some degree, it doesn't matter where it comes from. There are still a little bit of.
That second half of the sales tax will have to be earmarked for education, so, but you could.
Correct,
decrease
but you
property tax
could,
portion.
you could do that, and you can use that instead, in lieu of other funds that you would have had to, right now, we could lower the tax ratio, which we're
So you're
currently
saying,
applying today.
correct me if I'm wrong, this is possibly a way to capture growth from the cities that hasn't paid for itself, that we've raised property taxes on to build new schools.
You could offset property taxes.
With this.
With this. Now, I
It's a way
want
to
to
make
note,
the cities pay for schools.
there's 2 things about this. One, and you kind of hinted at it, the sales tax can be more variable, but it will tend to grow. So increasing by sales tax will over time increase more track with inflation than your property taxes will. Your property taxes go up and down like all over the place. This will more smoothly track with inflation. So in my view, it's kind of a long term, it is a more stable tax. However, it is more variable in the short term, which means that it would be, I think, if you wanted to decrease the property tax, you would want to give yourself a little bit of cushion. Let's say it's just round numbers, $10 million we expect to collect, we just said 11. I think if you wanted to reduce the property tax, you would want to reduce it by some amount somewhat lower than that, just off the chance that your sales tax doesn't come in the way you think it will. Otherwise, you're going to be running at a deficit that you didn't expect. That would be my only concern with it. So sorry, we've been hogging this. I want to get to it.
No, if this were to be done, you and I've had conversations about this. I'm not going to vote to raise taxes on citizens, but I'd rather see it come to a referendum. My other thought process is if it went to a referendum and it passed, you could say, tell me if I'm wrong, it might solve our volunteer fire department issue where we don't have to sit here. I don't know, or at least give them some, flexibility
The
more.
majority is going to go to schools, maybe.
Right, but that was my next question. How much could we help them out?
There will be some offsetting. I mean, at the end of the day, we will be collecting more revenue, and that revenue will likely increase better with inflation. So our overall collection will be more. However, a larger proportion of that will go to the schools. So you get more in total, but you also are more restrictive with what you get. So that's kind of the trade-off you get.
Would we know how much we could
Yeah,
maybe
we
help
have-
the volunteer fire departments? I mean, just to kind of, I don't know.
That's
I'm
a
just,
really
I'm
specific-
just
dollars for
kind of
dollars.
brainstorming.
What's that?
If
If you're doing a dollar for dollar exchange with a property tax, then none.
None.
Yeah,
We're,
it's a
yeah, I mean,
so we couldn't
issue.
even earmark any of that for.
Yeah, I mean, it
We
would
don't need it
be,
to make up the property tax.
the idea would be that you're trying to, like, at least
Also
on
look
year
at it as a
one,
subscription-based model too.
you cut the property tax somewhat to be commensurate, but then your sales tax increases, so your overall revenue will increase. But a larger portion of that is going to go to the schools, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Hyde?
Number one, I voted against the sales tax. I don't mind saying that. I voted against the sales tax in Hendersonville because I got a letter and I felt threatened. I got a letter, and I'm sure Ms. Allmiller and anybody else from Hendersonville saying, you've got a choice. You either vote for the sales tax or your property tax is going up. And I don't take to a threat very well, so I voted against it. Secondly, just because Hendersonville sinned, I don't think we have to. We're sitting here at a table without, now the suggestions have come up, but there's been nothing specific about how are you going to spend this money. It's like government greed of, well, here's an opportunity to get more money out of people. And I am opposed to that. And number three, this may not be a very good time to do this. 1 year ago, well, let me say this, and I know that Mr. Lawing very well knows this, but the number one measurement of the economy at any time is the cost of gold. Because when the economy is getting ready to tank, or people are very afraid of it tanking, investors, corporations, businesses, gold will go up. 1 year ago, gold could be bought for $1,200 or $1,400 an ounce. Today, it's almost $2,400 an ounce, which tells me that the major players in the economy are very, very afraid that we're getting ready to tank.
So I take that as Mr. Hyde, you've been against this.
I am very against it.
Got it.
Well,
Go ahead. Go
Just
ahead.
to clarify, you were talking about if you're raising the sales tax what the citizens wanted to, you would lower the property tax commensurate with it. So
Well, that's what that was the discussion we were having.
I just heard you say that, so it's like, that'll be the good.
I'm sorry, Jeremy,
I was just trying to clarify.
I know, I don't trust government,
I'm with you.
okay? I'm a part of it, but I don't trust government. Who's to say if we do one tax this way, that we're gonna do something else another way? The regular John Q. citizen out there does not trust us either. And he's going to think, okay, yeah, you're gonna lower the property tax, but next year you'll probably come back with another increase, but that's just me.
I mean.
No, you're right, no.
You're not wrong. I mean, I just wanted to put this out there for when you see something like that, it is, part of my role is to explore and people on this committee is to explore options. And I would note, you know, I agree with you, Mr. Hyde, with respect to not increasing the scope of government. I mean, honestly, there's a big part of me that would just reset it all to zero and let's just start from scratch. But I would also say that if we are experiencing historical inflation that is well beyond what we've seen for a generation, probably two at this point. And it's hitting us all over the place. It's hitting us in raw materials, and it's hitting us in salaries, it's hitting us in insurance. So we've got to be, at some point, you know, we're going to have to, I don't anticipate, looking at these numbers, looking at this budget, that we will need to have any kind of raw tax increase for the next several years, and we've been very, very diligent to make sure that doesn't happen. However, as inflation continues, if we want people to have the same level of service, that we can only do one of two things. At some point, we'll either have to cut services, or we'll have to increase taxes, or increase revenues somehow. There's not a lot of, there's really only one or two ways to balance the books, Mr. Hyde.
I agree with you wholeheartedly that inflation is really bad now and it's hitting us. But in my household, and I'm on a pension and Social Security, I'm not starving. It's a nice pension, a nice government pension. But the fact is, the way I manage is I have to adjust. I do have to tighten my spending. I have all kinds of options that I have to do to balance my budget. And we don't have an unlimited credit card as government, because whatever we do here at this table is going directly back to me in the community. So we've got to learn to adjust. It can't be, okay, we need more money, so let's go to the people that don't really have it.
Well, I would only, with this last year, and again, I'm not necessarily sure I'm for this. I'm to some degree playing devil's advocate on it. Yeah, I would probably be against it, frankly, but to just to do the diligence on it, we would be putting it to referendum. We wouldn't be.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be enforcing it on anybody. If it were up to me, we can't do this by state law. If it were up to me, I would put any property tax, any tax, in my view, should have to go to referendum. And so it would be the citizens choosing to tax themselves. It would be us choosing to put it on the referendum and selling it or not selling it, but it's right.
The only thing I want to say is look at the percentage of people who voted in the Hendersonville election. Tiny. And I'm not sure that the number that voted, even though it was a 2-to-1 vote, that may have been 4-2. You know, I don't know. It was a small vote. And I'm just saying, look at how many didn't vote and what the attitude may be out there. for the general public. You can't always go even by a referendum. I mean, I would love to have at least 50% of the people voting in a referendum, but I'm not sure they do.
Mr. Mansfield?
I'm gonna read you a quote from Mo Taylor, from the floor of the commission regarding kind of this topic. And he said, coming from where I'm at, meaning Westmoreland, they don't keep up with everything like I do. There's one thing I hear more than anything, and that's live within your means. Live within your means. It's hard to do. That's why they have credit cards and plastic. People who have lived here their entire lives are trying to retire. They're tired of paying more taxes. They don't see any new services that benefit them other than police protection or ambulance service. And he said, and God, hope you never have to call either one of them. Unfortunately, less than a year later, one of them had to be called, and Mo passed away because sheriff's deputy, or at least, I mean, he had a better chance, didn't have an AED. Sheriff's deputy's in like 2-3 minutes to his house. So thankfully, this committee and this commission voted to put AEDs in our police cars, and it's like $55,000 appropriation, so for life-saving devices. But, you know, he said we should have projections before we come to this body and ask me to vote for millions of dollars in debt for personnel or anything else. And so, I mean, just, the thing is live, to Chairman Hyde's point, is just live within our means, and government just doesn't do that. I mean, they just ask for more. It's never, how can we make do? Look at I'll harp on the vehicles. It's like, well, we need a brand new $40,000 truck. Well, how old's your other one? It's a couple years older. You know, how many miles on it? 100,000 miles. Like 100,000 miles, that engine just get broke. You know, it's just like, you know, if your engine blows, you know, repair your engine and buy a new engine. Your transmission blows, buy a new, repair your transmission. Both those, you don't need a new truck for $40,000 just because your truck reached $100,000.
They're not $40,000.
That's just, my point is live within your means, and we as government departments, they don't live within their means on everything. School board doesn't live within their means, by God. And so it just, you know, like I said, don't know if I'd be in support of that. Obviously,
So we
wouldn't, but it just making the point, I want to read what Mo echoes from the grave there, and just of living within our means, and that the citizens aren't a blank check, especially when you talk about raising sales taxes. That affects everything, you know, groceries,
I mean, it
diapers.
is. You could argue it's a regressive tax. I mean, it's hitting some of the poor people. I mean, go ahead, Ms. Boyd and Ms. Smith. Oh, then you go. Mr. I don't think I've ever seen you speak
If
so much.
everybody shut up, I wouldn't have anything to say.
Ms. Boyd, go ahead.
I would like to thank Commissioner Hyde, because the one thing in this conversation that you brought to the top of my mind is the truth. What Commissioner Schoaf's brought to the table is just an equal exchange. It's no additional taxes for us to spend, nowhere else, no fire districts to buy, no bright and shiny. It's an exchange. But you were exactly right, Mr. Hyde.
Yep.
As we move forward, we slide it this way this year, and in 3 years, we continue to up high, and we go back over here and we just raise this on up, and everybody's forgotten about
Yeah,
tonight's discussion.
that's how it happens.
So I appreciate that, and I see that, if we just looked at it today, just the exchange, I've talked to people, you know, in Hendersonville with the item on the agenda, that consumption, you know, would you rather have a consumption tax or a property tax? They shouldn't send you any letters threatening you. It's a simple yes or no. I like that it's on a referendum. People can make their mind up one way or another. And, but the one item is that you're 100% correct. In 3 years, everybody's forgot that we raised the sales tax, then we'll nudge this up and we'll nudge that up. All that we have to say now is that the cities have raised it, and schools will we won't capture that revenue towards schools, and it'll be just more, as Mr. Mansfield said, growth in the cities, driving without contributing like they have in the past.
Now, and I want to be super clear on something. I didn't even, I just wanted to lay out the facts of it. You know, I don't necessarily know what the right thing to do here was, but I do think it deserved to, and look, I think we know the way we're going to go on this, but it deserved to be considered. So Ms. Miller, then Mr. Hyde, and then Mr. Klein.
I just wanted to say, every time we go to the grocery store, we're already getting hit with
Yep.
inflation that's insane. Like, I literally thought my credit card got hacked but it was literally just me going to Sam's Club, Costco, Kroger, and Publix. That's what it was. And I literally called my credit card company and I'm like, I don't think this is right. And it was me, but it was inflation. So to add another tax to anybody, I mean, some people are having to choose between their electric bill and bottled water. I mean, it's crazy. So I would not be in support of raising any sort of tax.
Mr. Klein and Mr. Rod.
Okay, yeah, I have two questions. If we did put this up to the voters and they voted in favor of it, would that trigger, not that I'm all that concerned about it, but they're part of the county and Hendersonville's the biggest town in the county. Would that then go back and trigger a property tax increase in Hendersonville?
I
Because
mean, well, we would be potentially captured, yes, I mean, possibly, because they're banking on keeping that, and it's so, and this is where, and look, I'm from Hendersonville, right? Like you've seen me like argue for Hendersonville vociferously on many occasions, but I also, as the chair of this committee, I'm like, I'm looking at, they're collecting this revenue, and although I agree with you, Mr. I, just because they do something bad doesn't mean we have to. I have to, we have to look at the diligence of that and say, hey, here's this amount that's being taxed anyway. The people are already being taxed on it. It's just a matter of who controls that pot. That was my initial thought on this.
Right.
And that's why I kind of went down.
That's where I saw you coming from, and that's why I said, if anything, put it to a referendum. I mean,
Well, you'd have to.
I mean, I
Yeah.
voted against the Hendersonville
Mr. Wright.
referendum, but let the voters decide.
could I finish?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So item two, if it could be tax neutral, value added versus property tax, at least in the county, it would be tax neutral. I'm not square on how that would take care of impact fees or help in having the growth, pay for the growth.
Well, because that over time, you're gonna get more business, and so that, given the same rate, it should go up, because you're
Okay.
spending more dollars over time. Look, it's not gonna be a panacea, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is the one is going to grow commensurate with the inflation that is happening in common commercial transactions.
Yeah, because, my problem is growth, not paying for growth. So if I can shift the burden at all.
It does, but it also arguably shifts the burden onto people, like, people who own homes tend to be better off than people who don't. But everybody has to have enough to pay for groceries. And so you could argue it's a regressive tax. I'm not saying it necessarily is, but you could argue that.
You
Mr.
could,
Wright?
you could.
I hopefully no one will speak after I speak, because I haven't eaten and I need to go home. But,
Can't afford it, I mean, you gotta pay for groceries.
But look, this is my 32nd year up here, and I've been up here with a lot of men and women and a lot of different groups. And I have friends of mine that I have had say to any progress, no, 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 no. Now, I'm conservative, but I do want you to know I'm reasonable. If I find a situation where there's no way out, and libraries need it, schools, there's no other way out, without damaging them, I will vote to give somebody something if it's absolutely necessary, and I think the public expects us to. But we're not at that point.
We're not. All right, we don't need to do anything else with this, so are there any other motions? That was just a motion to discuss. Okay,
So it is off?
it is off. This can be removed. We have done our diligence. Okay, Sheriff's Office, approval of jail software, crossing fiscal years. 342 to 348. Mr. Long, you may need to take this one.
Item A and B are just, they're crossing fiscal years. The second one's a 60-month lease. The first one, and I've marked the amounts, it's 342.
It's
I can tell you the number.
550.
I marked it, but I've showed my page. I've got a mark here. The first one just goes from November to November, so it goes across the fiscal year, so there's a prepayment and appropriation needed. The second one is a 60-month, I believe it's a copy here, if I'm not mistaken. Postage machine for 60 month lease. I believe 439 has the amount on it. 439 has the amount of 60 months at 125, 22 a month. But any multi-year or cross fiscal years requires commission's approval.
Okay. This,
I'm gonna move the group and approve A and B.
all right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Number 6 is the same thing, multi-year copier.
That is motion to approve, second. Waive second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 7 is tech grants.
They're wanting
These are for library.
They're wanting to apply for them. There's a 50% match. The 50% comes from the library budgets, is where they've always came.
I would entertain a motion to group and approve.
Motion to group and approve.
Motion to group and approve, second.
Is that 7A, A through D?
A through D, 7A through D. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Have
All
a
right.
moment for discussion.
We already voted.
I know, but ladies from the library have sat here all night.
Uh,
Could we at least tell them thank you? I mean, it's a little bit out, but they have sat here all night.
Thank you, guys. We just grouped and approved.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Would you like to come back and read the budget?
Ask them to come up.
All right, grant award for broadband ready committee grant, 100,000. Non-matching, oh, this is all pass, this is just pass through, right? I mean,
It is, well, it's a new revenue and expenditure to broadband grant for this, and it looks like it covers downtown Portland, what I was reading.
Are we putting anything up to it?
No.
Yeah, so-
My understanding by reading it.
We have a motion, second, all in favor? Aye. Any
We'll wait
opposed?
a second.
Yeah, go
Wait a
ahead.
second.
Motion, I'm good with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Amend standing rules and procedures, so we have a motion, second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Tax refunds, I didn't,
moved.
E1 is pulled, so it's just number 2.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, we know we have, no, we don't have. Motion to adjourn, second, all in favor? All right.